真的是双杀这种。
因为之前也是，他怎么可能？考虑，老师很好啊，老师很好。可是就是你跟他的话，你要有心理，就是你不可以，就是你不要一直问他说可不可以，他不会。就是如果你是一个需要别人教你，或是就是你会不敢提。就你需要别人，你不代表他没有。
那时候就是好像新工作的时候，听到就有一点蛮有趣，就是学姐他们说，就是这样算是一个给你很多空间，然后不会一直催着你。
对，就是老师
他自己会去沟通。
老师会跟你说，反正你自己是你的那个 project， 然后如果你自己没做完那个事情，我没有必要就是拖着。可以考虑。可是其实还好像我也是一个超级无聊的，那种自控力，你就会活下来。
所以你会觉得我很不会掌控。
我也不会啊，可是你就是看吧，因为老师是说，我至少是他念2句，然后我觉得他有修。如果你是被念，因为老师会念2句，
就是不修。这真的好丢脸。
这样子吧，他就是，可是你会，他不喜欢你，可是我是不太喜欢。
他不会说他不喜欢你，这样。
好吧，就没得选，就他要来选你，也不能干东西，又不是买的。
老师可以。
没有啊，就是他有3个口吧，或2个，2、3个，因为他就是一定要会2、3个。
一定要吗？
没有啊，他们蛮会选我们，他还要3、4年啊，还不能刷。你会啊？
之前那个有老师说4个，我觉得好多听说老师说1个，这也不一定要去说。
没有啊，可是有人找你，就我老师不太会。
这点我很有同感，我觉得这点有点同感。
他很好啊，他人很好，而且他超可爱的，他是小宝宝，小公主，不要跟他说。好，他很气，我可以想打你起来。小鸟会，还是他也有东西。
我真的好想睡觉哦。
好吧，楼下有咖啡喝。
咖啡对我有。啊？好。我这感觉脑袋随时要休蛋。
学长，你为什么会找夏老师啊？
帅
吗？老师真的蛮帅的。
老师超帅，老师跟这样的冬天穿风衣的时候，超帅。他超帅，这些很温柔。
大家是。
可是我有被你说他凶，有一点惊讶到。
他有时候他不会很。
他的凶我就直接攻击。
你会觉得有一点，你会怕，就是因为他有关系，就是他太。
他的凶是气场。
就是。
他不是噼啪的。
他就会说，就是这个，你不觉得，你刚开始有点怕。老师好冷。
他上次说什么？他是姜老师跟谁中？
钟老师。
应该是。他说他以前是比较偏姜老师，后来他有收敛，他比较偏2个人中。
偏姜老师那边是。
他以前骂人也很犀利。
姜老师骂人犀利哦。我没有想到他他很像我。
跟阿笑老师说，现在姜老师也收敛。
很跟他差不多，他以前是会，就是可能就是看我的家教，我家老师可能改10年次，然后我跟阿笑老师看蛮长的，而且老师跟我说他的技很好，但他以前太过，看了前面2集就直接刷。
对。
现在不会了，现在很好，现在是改16次了，还好。
那我知道。
好，老师不会凶的，除非你都。他会
道我们这些学长姐英文介绍的时候，就是开学前1周，我说上课你们一定要说，你们会给我有一个很大的了解。对，就是那种他们感觉就是害我要修到18学分，我就
18年，
那时候就这样说。哦，我修了硕一不是做12学分必修的吗？就是必修是12，就是如果按照课程地图那样修。
你干嘛在课程地图修啊？你有发错啦？
他就觉得这堂课建议修一修就修一修，我没有想那么多
生统
研究法有经学，
像就是
然后还有健康体系，然后再加上所讲的健康组织与管理，
那是必修吗？
那是必修。就比较适合12学分。对，12学分，然后我礼拜也有说叫那个什么，因为它是2个开始，
所以我想到，
然后实务管理，我觉得因为他的观点是我第一次听到用比较业界讲的，就是2年开始我没看过，而且
我自己不喜欢上，我每次上堂课都觉得很绝望。
可是因为那个我是想选医管领域，然后这堂课是医管领域，
医学院医管，那要选这样子啊？
因为我大学读公卫啊，只是就是因为读公卫，所以研究所这种感觉，就是修课想学医管这种感觉，所以就是我不想选医管领域，所以那堂课就要选。然后到社会健康就12+2就16节社会健康，12+6是14啦，然后社会健康就16，还有其他小老师的自己选。
医学应该是我在学吗？医学有的时候我说大学，
我那时候觉得就是想要先了解一下阿夏老师的感觉，所以那时候
那你就是听他没听啊？他有一点是蛮瑞奇。他们可以听，我真是听不到啊。那你可以考虑，你可以跟他们说，你研究法下课来听，应该也是不会解释，老师就讲，可是一个人可能就讲2个人没有。
你说你听什么？
对啊，一个人要讲
一个人讲，然后老师就不知道。
没有，就是你开场就打字开始，然后开始扯，有的没有。
我懂了。可是我会说健康，就是我会说自己我班因为想要写跟自己有关好的，所以这样的概念，就复习一下经济学，这个是也不算多，这就是88。
有那时候其实还好。
真的吗？
如果你没有追求成绩要很高的话，
那我没关系，好。
要帮我看一下对面好了，我想要休息。
好哦。因为我还有修一个
研究法律的对啊。
研究法还好，因为我
真的吗？
没有吗？
目前没有听说过。
我给你啊，那个不好说，我拿谁？
我刚才听学家。
可以啊，你要。
你们有在看直播吗？
早上吗？
没有，现在。没有，就了解一下进度了。现在是已经。
早上讲的比较帅。三角他的袜子是彩色点点袜。
对呀，他的袜子超可爱，他英文讲超好。
对啊。
我听得懂。
他讲好快啊。
对啊，他一直懂英文，那个上面这个。
老师可是那个
墨西哥人，对，墨西哥人会做到美国学会的理事长，
所以他很厉害。
对啊。
哦。
所以他的发音就很奇怪，我们讲 public health， 他是讲 public health。
就是我觉得，然后他讲那个院长的名字的时候，我就觉得他名字好像真太早。
哎，麦克风有关掉。不小心你看这话。
可是第一个人真的讲太快，那个真的是用标准。
他68页。
累积特快车。
20分钟那样讲。
没关系，如果没听懂的话，回去再看 YouTube。
对啊。
我们那个影片都会在。
真的太快。
蛮好的。
对啊。
PPT 做的好。PPT 做的。
就是你最喜欢看的是最后面他的袜子这样。
哦，对，他那个。
真的很可爱耶，很明显，就是因为他拍照都做自己拍，然后就那袜子超明显。哇，你可以翘起来，一定要让你看到他的袜子。
超可爱的。
我的袜子是黑的，我就不知道你看的。好。
还有那种很大颗的。
大。
泡泡。
那我得去回去找合照，我看不到。先摇手了吗？他们在电话。
我们还没有开着，他就开着。
照到拍，就是如果
举牌吗？
就是如果直播那位讲者的话，我们坐在这里会不会？
不对，直播会播这个，所以
完全你们不会录制。
所以直播如果讲者站在这里讲，还是会拍 slide？
会拍 slide， 对，就是可能一开始拍讲者，然后拍演讲的时候应该是要拍 slide。
那就我觉得应该就没关系。
除非他站在，
我怕他站在这里讲。
可是他站着的时候也是要拍 slide， 就是在讲话的时候应该是要拍 slide， 对。
也是好像
同时都拍得到。
拍得到吗？
我去外面就。
他只是安排这样的形式。
是我。
他这个有点没有同步，他这个上面会比较满。对。对啊，你看你现在才在荧幕里面才走过去讲台上。
我们2点10分开始，所以就是10 past 2。那
蛮喜欢吃的。
我下载了一个啦，只有一个可以下载，好。
Interesting setting. See, it's going to be everybody.
How are you? Yes. Yeah, she has. Dorothy has. Dorothy has. Short black hair. I can go find her.
Okay, but no problem.
I have my laptop too, so.
In case, yeah. But I think she probably has already installed it.
Yeah.
Somewhere here.
Somewhere, probably.
Did you make your file prepare something or is it
Sure. We're gonna make believe it's that.
double check if it's here already. If not, then we should definitely our things.
Sure. Maybe put them all together.
So we'll double check.
Okay.
Yeah, but
No problem. Yeah, it's fine.
Just hook it
I
up.
don't even need pictures. Just, I'm my son's little song and dance with him. Last weekend. She has said she had them. I'm maybe Kristen will figure it out. She's good that way. And Kristen probably has something to get it off my laptop too. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow if I don't see you later.
We'll definitely see you.
Yes, I think so. It's on the 5th and the last one. Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
And we'll go back to the
Yeah.
So,
I'll catch you. Yeah.
enjoy.
反正本来就
So welcome for all of you to come to this concurrent session of academic degrees. So we hear a lot of enriched, is that from our group? We hear a lot of enriched discussions and presentations in the morning and talking about the transformation of public health education. And we hear some facts about the differences from earlier stages also nowadays. And we see the undergraduate PhD students, the ratio of that to the graduate degree has actually dropped in recent years. And partly because of the new programs of the bachelor degree of public health has been created, but also could be possibly due to some drop of the master or PhD degree of the students coming to the university or the institutes. So I think the increase of the bachelor degree is actually a good, if we look at the positive sides, that's the pool of the students who will come to the master degree and PhD degree. However, we also hear the fact that the globally enrollment rate for the master or PhD degree students is actually decreased over the years. And partly might be because of the low birth rate, especially like in Taiwan. We are in the bottom or top one of the low birth rate globally. So I think this question is actually posed us in a very special era of discussing about how to motivate people to get into the academic degrees. But also we hear something about the diversity of the students choose to go into the working environment, from the government to academic places to many private sectors or NGO organizations. And so in this way, I think it creates the challenges for us to think and rethink about how to really change our education systems and how to really rethink about what students want from the academic degree and how we can provide them with the different aspects, especially for some jobs that people talk about in the future 10 years. Those jobs won't exist nowadays. How do we prepare them from getting the best out of it after they come into the academic degree? So I'm delighted to announce that we have three distinguished presenters today. One is from the United States, and the others are from the Asian sects. And so we are going to welcome the first speaker, Dr. Perry Halkitis, the Dean and Professor of Statistics and Urban Global Health in Rutgers School of Public Health from the United States. Welcome.
Thank you. So thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you briefly today. So in planning for this session, I thought what I could do is just speak specifically to the kinds of initiatives that we are undertaking at our school, at the Rutgers School of Public Health, as a way of understanding how I think we move the Masters of Public Health degree forward to the 21st century. Before I start that, I want to say that I think our challenge for attracting students moving forward is to make sure that the degrees that we offer are relevant and timely and meaningful. We need to not offer our, old mamas and dads MPH, but actually have new, interesting, relevant MPH degrees. And so, the criteria that CEF adopted in 2016, I think actually provide us an opportunity to rethink how we design the MPH, how we put forward new MPH concentrations, and how we think about putting students forward who are trained both in skills, which I think is crucially important, but also in terms of content. And I like this quote: public health students are graduating with excellent technical knowledge, right? I'm sure everybody can do a t-test by hand, right? Yes, I would expect that. But without the competency to translate that knowledge into effective day-to-day practice. And I think that's absolutely key. And for me, as I've been in this role now, beginning my 3rd year at the Rutgers School of Public Health, it's thinking about how do we get those skills to our students in terms of leadership and budgeting and communications and what have you, while at the same time thinking through topical areas that are interesting to the students. And so what we've done is to redefine the MPH at our school, to revise the curriculum so that it is more focused on leadership and management, that is skills-based, and that is action learning, learning by doing. I was, in my early life, some 30 years ago, while I was doing my doctoral degree, an elementary school science teacher. And I will tell you first and foremost that the best way to engage students in learning is by having them do, instead of pouring information into their brains. Because if you imagine a set of 5-year-olds sitting in your science classroom, if you just lectured at them, they would not pay attention. Then why do we think we should lecture at 25-year-olds? And so hands-on learning, action-based learning, the kinds of educational techniques that the literature has shown us work very effectively in schools, in elementary schools, and high schools, is what we need to infuse our curricula with. In addition to that, the second big modification we've put forward is the addition of what I'm calling modern concentrations, and I'm going to share with you one of those modern concentrations. And number 3, giving our students an opportunity to not only get the MPH, but to get some specific knowledge and skills in another targeted area. In doing it in a way where they combine the MPH with a certificate that allows them to do it parsimoniously in a short amount of time, that doesn't require 2 separate degrees, but combines them into one. So I'm calling the MPH plus certificate, okay? So please feel free to ask questions. So very, very simply, I'm just going to go through the strategies that we're using in our MPH program. We have maintained the traditional core. I know some schools have changed this. We've maintained it. So all of our students take the basic core areas, but we've introduced a course called Public Health Essentials, where really students are learning about leadership, about cultural competence, about basic negotiation and mediation skills, and about action-based participatory learning and community-based participatory research. After that, students take 15 to 18 credits required by the concentration and 6 to 9 credits of electives. To me, the heart and soul of the MPH is very much this 3-credit practicum experience that all programs have, an applied practice experience, which is the work that's done outside outside the school at an agency, and an interprofessional educational experience where students are expected to participate in approved educational events in conjunction with our office at Rutgers, which is the Rutgers of Interprofessional Learning. So there's these events that bring together, these learning opportunities that bring together dentists and pharmacists and public health people to learn together. and they work in a team-based way in these activities so that our public health students have an opportunity to also learn with students at the other health professions that are at Rutgers. So from the past, we have had several concentrations that might look very familiar to many of you, that probably many of you have at your schools, including biostatistics and environmental health sciences and global public health and epidemiology. And these are all fine and good, and you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, so you keep these. But we have taken these and enhanced them with these into the future. These are concentrations we have developed or are beginning to develop at our school, including aging and the health of populations, a concentration in environmental justice, a concentration in health outcome policy and economics, a concentration in LGBTQ health, a concentration in pharmacoepidemiology, and a concentration in urban public health, not urban health. These look a little different than those, right? But I think that as a school moving forward, you need these traditional areas, but you also need these areas. I want to talk very briefly with you about why we did this LGBTQ health concentration, which is the first concentration on LGBTQ health in the country. There are many certificates. I actually thought we were going to do a certificate, but then my faculty came back to me and said, a certificate is not enough to learn about the ins and outs of LGBTQ health. You need a full concentration. And of course, I stepped back and I said, you're probably right, because I'm the person who goes around screaming that having medical schools only do 4 hours of LGBTQ training is not enough. So let's do a concentration. And lo and behold, we launched it, and we have close to a dozen students in this concentration this year. And this concentration is really focused on looking at the experiences of stigma and discrimination, which function as burdens and stressors on the health of the LGBTQ population. And so I think there's two things that are really, really important here as we think about this concentration. For people who are wanting to work with the population, it's insufficient to think of all minority and marginalized groups in the same way, right? In fact, it is insufficient to think about LGBTQ people as one group. And so what this concentration does is really gives an opportunity to look broadly at the LGBTQ population, but also specifically at L, G, B, T, Q, which are not the same populations. And so this is what the concentration does. I'm just going to go really briefly through it. Why do we do this? Why do we want this concentration? Because if you look at health statistics, these are the kinds of things that really trouble me. Look at this one here. So look at this. This is a report that was published a few years ago by the Human Rights Campaign that says that close to 11% of LGBT people, 15% of transgender people, and 36% of people living with HIV went to a healthcare professional who refused to touch them. That's hugely problematic. Healthcare professionals use harsher or abusive language. 21% of transgender people experience that. The healthcare professionals blame them for their health status. 26% of HIV positive people, 20% of transgender people. Healthcare professionals were physically rough or abusive. 4% of LGBT people, 8% of transgender people, 4% of people living with HIV. And this paper here that was recently published in the American Journal of Public Health showed very clearly that many healthcare providers have an explicit, very clear preference for treating heterosexual people over LGBT people. So what does this mean to me? That means to me that we have an obligation in public health to perhaps, one, move our field forward to think more broadly about LGBTQ health, but also to then embed this kind of training into the other health professions. I have 2 minutes, I'm told. For those of you who are not familiar, there was this really amazing report up here, The Health of Lesbian, Gay, and Bisexual and Transgender People, that was published in 2011 by the National Academies of Sciences, which was at that point known as the Institute of Medicine. And in that report, it talks very clearly about the health disparities faced in the population, but also how unprepared health professionals are and how limited the research is, including the public health research is, on the population. So it's available for free download. You don't have to buy the book. Okay, so lots of reasons why we do LGBTQ health. Because I'm running out of time, we want to prepare professionals. We want people who are going to conduct research and learn about the relative disparities, programs, or gaps in the research. There's no MPH program that offers a concentration. And then why are we doing it at Rutgers? Because we are actually beginning to be a powerhouse in this area. And so we are well equipped to do this work. Here are the competencies of the program. I can share these slides all with you later, but I'm going to move, and here's the course of study, including courses in methods, courses in history. We really believe that in order to really be able to do really effective LGBTQ population or public health work, you need to understand the history of the population. And so we do that. We have a course on transgender health, and what have you. I'm going to move on because I'm out of time. Okay. The other thing that we've done to enhance our offering of the MPH at our school is to combine the MPH with certificate programs. So students may complete one of the concentrations and a certificate that looks something like this. So if you think about a menu at a restaurant, you choose one from here and you choose one from here, right? And you can combine them. So you could say, I'm going to get an MPH in biostatistics with a concentration in LGBTQ health. Or I'm going to do a concentration in global public health with a certificate in, I don't know, maternal and child health. And why this is easier is because we're able, based on our state regulations, to allow a couple of those courses to be counted for both. So instead of doing 46 credits and 15 credits, you do a combination of 55 credits. So 2 of the courses count together. So students get the concentration, plus they get the depth of the certificate. And so increasingly we've had many students doing that. Students can also come back later after they've done the concentration to do a certificate separately, but we felt that by offering it to our students while they're there, they're there. It means 2 or 3 more courses while they're there, and they can finish with 2 separate degrees. Finally, as is the case of any other school in the world, and I think you heard this very clearly this morning, public health is global health. Global health is public health, right? It is insufficient for us to live in our little bubbles. And so at our school, which had a global health program for years but no global offerings, we've begun to develop those. We have developed these relationships with universities in China, in Tanzania, and in Greece, and have been offering short-term intensive courses where we do the following thing, which is, I think, particularly unique. We take our students to those sites. Our students are matched with students at those sites, so they create dyads and they learn from each other, and they have an opportunity to enhance their learning, both in terms of the course material, but also the culture in which they're studying it. And I'll leave my comments at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Halkitis. So this is very creative. Tells us that he demonstrated that we need to be really creative. We need to be very flexible about thinking our concentration and combinations of attracting students coming to the program. And so let's welcome the second speaker, Professor Eng-Kiong, the director in Chinese University in Hong Kong, JC School of Public Health and Primary Care. Let's join me to welcome him.
Check this. It's easy for me to use it. Oh, thanks here. What do you want me to do? I can check the mic is off this one. Yes. Okay. I thought what I'd do today is to talk about programs that we run in Hong Kong, and particularly to look at articulation of programs, because one of the things that's not been discussed today is how all these programs articulate. I mean, especially for students. When you start with a program in bachelor's in public health, we've seen where people go, but our students, because we have run the program bachelor's in public health, one of the few ones in Asia, I think, where they really don't know then eventually how they're going to, because with a bachelor's degree in public health, it's quite difficult to find a job in public health, and really because you need some experience. So our students then basically provide mechanism for them to articulate both to a master's degree, the top postgrad program. We give them options of looking at masters in public health, masters in health management, masters in epidemiology and statistics, and then also for them to articulate to an academic program. So there are obviously heard about the mega challenge, why we meeting today, because there are all these problems of democratic transition, social media informatics we've heard about, globalization, integration of health in all government policies. Of course, challenges are increasingly complex, so we need to really review every school of public health is doing that, looking at how we're going to have to work across collaborative networks, intersectoral participation. So this changes how we organize our programs in practice and in research. So we need to move not just from multidisciplinary to more interdisciplinary, and of course even more transdisciplinary, which is something we haven't discussed. So we talk about multidisciplinary, but how do people actually work together? When the people, two academics with very strong academic background, they don't understand the language or the methods of another discipline. So in fact, I find great difficulty trying to get people to work together, especially if you have very successful, you heard today already that when you have very successful academics working in their own areas, they are not willing to give up whatever they are doing. So, and then of course you also don't want to compromise their capacities and try to move them in another area. So we have these professional degrees and academic degrees. I think this is more on the what you do in America. But in Asia, our programs are not really that clearly delineated. Obviously, the professional degrees are more for the practice, and the academic degrees usually are body thesis. So in Hong Kong, for our academic degrees, we have the Masters of Philosophy in Public Health, and then we have the Doctorate of Philosophy in Public Health. So these are the competencies you're aware of that we talked about. I won't repeat them. So we have a Masters in Public Health, which is very similar to what you have in the States. The aim is to provide broad public health perspective and skills for effective leadership in public health practice in the domains of health improvement, protection, health service. So we have a bachelor's in public health, and students, if they want to move on to a more advanced degree, articulate into master's program, and they're given credits that they don't have to repeat the courses. So we need also to look in terms of the difference between our bachelor's programs and our master's programs. We take master's students from students that have a bachelor's in public health. We also take students from other disciplines as well, especially we have doctors and nurses who want to do a master's in public health. So so the master's in public health takes a much broader group of students, but the students with the bachelor's can articulate to them. I'll skip that. And we also have a program of Master of Science and postgraduate diplomas in health service management. So because the emphasis here is on healthcare management, we call it health services, we also offer postgraduate diplomas because some students do not wish to take a 2-year program, so they take a 1-year program, and then they can then decide to move back to a master's program after 1 year. So the students in bachelor's, they then articulate to a health service manager if they're more interested in health service management, or they do a master's in public health. So these are the 3 areas. We also have programs where the students in our health service management also do some core modules in public health medicine, and then some general management programs. I'll skip this. And we also have a 3rd program of masters in epidemiology and biostatistics. So these are individuals who really want to learn more technical areas in terms of epidemiology and biostatistics. And these are especially popular for a lot of our students from the mainland, because in the mainland, the epidemiology and biostatistics is something that the ministries look for in terms of the masters. In academic degrees in public health, I'll mainly talk about the master's programs that we have. There's an MPhil in public health, and it's a research doctorate where we provide competency training in theory, data analysis methods, research design. Also, these students then see academic works that could either be in government, but usually more in academia. So we have an articulate program of an MPhil and PhD. These two streams are articulated. So if students aren't clear, if they wish to move into academic public health. So we have students that have a bachelor's degree in public health, and then they want to do an academic degree, but they are not certain whether they really want to move to that. So they can then take a master's philosophy in public health first, but they can be an articulation program. So that program, articulate program, is a 4-year program, and they can decide to stop at the master's the philosophy in public health or move on to a PhD. So it builds capacities research methodologies related to public health and community-oriented public health and community care. Because we are a school of public health and primary care. So we also use primary care as part of the School of Public Health. And they do research in 8 different areas: biostatistics, epidemiology, family medicine, primary health care, global health and humanitarian medicine. Because we have our school is very strong in humanitarian medicine, health promotion, behavioral health, health systems, policy management, infectious disease, occupation, and environmental health. Because it's a 4-year program, the MPhil is 2 years. The PhD is either 3 or 4 years. If you have a research master's, then you do a 3-year program. If you had a master's which is not research based, then it's a 4-year program. And the university also offers scholarships for students to study the PhD. And the Hong Kong government also has an international scholarship scheme that's very attractive, that we want to attract good people that come to Hong Kong. And it's a very, very generous program that they can study in any of our tertiary institutions. So the year 1 students complete 12 units of compulsory coursework in 7 disciplines. And then they have seminars and courses and thesis research in each academic year. And they have to pass candidacy requirements for a qualified assessment. So during the course of the first year, they'll be doing their thesis work, and they'll then have to qualify for the thesis work, and then they have a defense on the written research proposal. The challenges in academic public health will be increasing need to integrate advances in the field, emerging technologies, state-of-the-art development. Programs, we need to specialize the areas of expertise for efficiency. At the same time, we need to embrace interdisciplinary and transformative approaches, have versatile researchers who can collaborate. Of course, the school itself must be able to offer that. Of course, we also face competition from professional degrees in similar fields. So we then provide this articulation method, so people have much greater choices, especially for young people with a bachelor's degree. They can then opt to go for more professional or for academic degrees. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Professor Yeoh for the detailed introduction. So in the morning we see the very importance of the leadership, but he also highlights the importance of communication skills. And so this is the communication not only between disciplines, but I think also need to be between the academic area and also the community. We need to talk to each other, be open-minded, okay? And so I'd like to introduce our third speaker, Professor Sanjay Rampal. He's the head of Department of Social and Preventive Medicine, University of Malaysia. That's welcome.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So my name is Sanjay, and what I'll be doing today is giving you an overview of the public health education in Malaysia, graduate education in Malaysia. So I come from University of Malaya. Just a little background myself. I'm a medical doctor trained in India, and I've served in the Ministry of Health Malaysia. I've gotten my MSPH and the PhD from the US, and I've also been certified CPH, certified in public health, a couple of years ago. Right? So coming to Malaysia and the community that we are in. So Malaysia has a population of about 30 plus million, but Malaysia resides in the ASEAN community. When you think of the ASEAN community, there's about 650 million people staying in ASEAN. So Malaysia comprises about 5% of the population. But when you look at the GDP, so the Malaysian GDP comprises about 12% of the total ASEAN GDP. So we are an important member of the ASEAN community, and we look forward to going more global in the coming years. So if I go straight to the crux of the matter of the evolution of public health training, right? So public health training in Malaysia started before the 30s, right? In the 1910s and 1920s. At that time, it was mostly public health education was delivered by civil servants, these people in government. And until the first department of social medicine was formed in about 1940s, 1944, right? So the Department of Social and Preventive Medicine in University of Malaya was formed in 1964. And before that, what we did was we had a postgraduate diploma of public health from 1953 onwards, which was available for the workforce. We have started our MPH program in 73, with our first batch coming out in 74. And consequentially, what happened is the MPH evolved into a combination of programs. So from a one-year MPH program, it evolved into one option was a 4-year MPH program, where instead of 1-year MPH, you had a 4-year MPH. In addition to this, parallel to this 4-year MPH program, you had a 1+3 program, whereby the +3 of the MPH was actually focusing in a concentration, a specific concentration of public health. And then at the same time, in about 2001, there was formation of the DRPH program. Now, fast forward a bit to 2007, whereby all the major government universities started offering a 1+3 public health program, whereby the first year consisted of an MPH, right? And then you could go back to the workforce, or you could continue with a 3-year DRPH. And in addition to that, in about 2018, we have had parallel pathways informed for public health education. Wherefore, if you were interested, you could do an MPH plus a DRPH, or if you're interested in academia, you could do an MPH plus PhD. So then what happened is now there are multiple entry points and exit points for the career pathway of public health professionals. Now, these are some of the universities that offer the Masters of Public Health program and the DRPH program. So currently we have 7 universities offering both programs. And when you talk about equivalent training to the MPH, so we have a Masters of Science in Public Health, and then we have University of Malaya and other private universities starting to offer academic programs, a Master of Science in Public Health, and also we have a Master of Community Health Science. Now, let's skip this. Now, one thing that we can look, if you look at the evolution of public health postgraduates program, is that when we started these postgraduate programs, we had focused on the medical doctors, right? The program was tailored towards medical doctors. In subsequent years, I think from the 2000s onwards, we had parallel pathways which cropped up, offering Masters of Science in Public Health for the non-doctors, right? For the nurses, for the dietitians, so on and so forth. However, in recent years, in the past 2-3 years, we are seeing now whereby the MPH is becoming more inclusive in nature, and looking forward, whereby the MPH program will be a program for everyone, regardless of whether you are a medical doctor or not. And we are also seeing that the career specialization for public health physicians becoming more specific in nature, and there may be an eventual separation between the academic programs and professional programs and career pathways down the road. Now, if you look at the programs that we've had, so these are just some of the programs that we have in Malaysia. Like I said, initially we had a postgraduate diploma in public health. Then we have had the Master of Public Health and from whereby we have had, our alumni is about 914. We've also had the Master of Medical Science in Public Health. And then we have had these different MPH programs where you have a 1-year MPH and a 3-year concentration or specialization program. Following that, there was the Master of Medical Science, and then eventually leading to the 2 doctoral degrees, the Doctor of Public Health and the Doctor of Philosophy. And our alumni actually come from all over. There was a time when about 40% of our class was international students, but currently about 25% of our class is consists of international applicants. right? So if you look at the MPH course per se, it's a 42 credit course, right? We have 7 core courses, each of 3 credits, as listed in the slide. We also have 1 research project, and we have 6 elective courses. And I think there is some consistency between the curriculum that we follow and the curriculum that we have seen before, whereby we cover the very, very similar core public health sciences or disciplines, right? In addition to that, we have elective courses which are transdisciplinary and also more traditional concentration-based kind of electives. And with that, thank you.
We thank all the 3 speakers for their detailed introduction about the different systems, but I think one common thing is that we kind of realize now the border between professional degree and academic degree is not that clear-cut in nowadays, and I think that's one of the, maybe the positive side, flexibility, but also brings some challenges. How do we really balance between the 2 ends, from academic kind of excellency to the translational studies and the computational health promotion and all kinds of the things. And when students can choose between the 2 sides, and how do they choose to make the most out of their career and also benefit to the society for increasing the overall public health? And so in terms of this, we do actually kind of share some of their thoughts about the differences between the 2 sides of the degree.
That's actually a really good question. So we spend a lot of time talking about how scientists do research that doesn't get translated to the public, right? That people do research studies and they exist as research studies and they don't get translated, and we have a whole field of implementation side that's focused on that. So from where I sit, I think what we have to do is have programs that don't isolate the 2 areas. The question for me is, it's like thinking about 2 different glasses. One, which is, let's say, 70% water and 30% juice, 70% academic and 30% practice, and the other one that is 70% practice and 30% juice. We need to be able to train our students to feel comfortable navigating both spaces and not create this, what I think is a real artificial dichotomy in many of the programs that exist currently.
I think it's a very important question, especially for students who want to do public health, because very often it depends on where you are in your career. For students that have just got the bachelor's degree, so they're really looking in terms of looking at opportunities. Obviously, some of them have some inclinations to do a more like we provide opportunities on health management, or they wish to do more epidemiological scientific. Some think they want to do academic work. So you provide them with those opportunities. That's why the articulation is so important. We also have students that have been doing like biostatistics, and then they have been involved in research in public health, and they didn't want to do a PhD in public health. So we also provide those opportunities for them. So that's why in our programs, we provide them with the basic coursework. And of course, it's really not just the course itself, but the opportunities within the faculty or the school, or for people to work across. Because if you have been working, if you have very good biostatisticians in university, and then they then decide to do public health, and of course they are a great asset. And now that we also move into areas of big data, in terms of artificial intelligence, where people in engineering who wish to do public health, and there are great opportunities for us to enrich the whole field of public health. So how we provide those opportunities for those individuals to bring the new disciplines to enrich public health. So I think we're trying to do some of that.
To me, right, if you look at differentiation of academic careers versus professional careers, we really have to look at evolution of education. So if you look in the past, many of our students were just doing a master's, enter the workforce, and that was sufficient. But now if you look at it, many of them go on and obtain a doctoral degree. And I think the differentiation actually occurs at the doctoral level rather than the master's level. Whereby at the doctoral level, typically you have two programs, the PhD and the DRPH. And I think that is key, because if you're going to obtain a DRPH, you should be looking at a professional career. And if you're interested in a PhD, you're looking most likely at an academic career. Whereas the MPH, from a professional program, which is supposed to be, it's becoming like a basic necessity for public health professionalism.
Yeah, I want to agree wholeheartedly with my colleague here. I think that the MPH should be the entry point. That should then direct you appropriately, right? But I think that what we're seeing in the United States, and my colleagues from the United States can add to this if they'd like, is that the MPH students are getting younger and younger and younger. And I don't think that, at 22 years old, I should have to commit to one of these two areas. So I think if a public health program is really effective, it's what it's doing. It's going to give them the option to explore academic or versus practice. And then you're right. Then go to the doctoral degree that's most appropriate for them. And I think that's ASPPH has done a really nice job differentiating the DRPH from the PhD.
Any questions from the audience?
Okay. Thank you, panelists, for the insightful presentations. Yeah, actually, I just want to add on or ask about this Doctor Public Health and that of PhD. I've worked with the Ministry of Health before, and my director recommended me to go for further studies. But there were these two degrees, PhD and Doctor Public Health. But already you are in public health. And we have people who have professional degrees working in the health force, but also lecture at the universities or kind of provide some faculty support. So it's the blend of the two. Sometimes it really confuses even you, the mentee, as to how your bosses want you to be, because they need you at both sides, whether you can come to support faculty or as well as also provide some field work. So even though there are those clear definitions, but I don't know, some universities in the US provide dual degrees at an upper level like Rutgers do. If maybe you want, because you want to do PhD, but you want to have some professional background as you started from, so that at every point in time, if you want to go back to the field, you will have the flair to go back and practice work. And if those combinations with some few credits, maybe either to blend it with academia research or blend it with professional degrees, I think it will be fun. Thank you.
I think I'm going to go back to my original point. I think it's an artificial dichotomy. And I think that we start to think about many things in our world as existing on a spectrum, right? I don't care what it is, right? And that if we're doing our advanced degrees really, really well, whether it's a PhD or a DRPH, there should be some practice and some research. It's just that the proportions should be different. And we should never think that a person like myself, who's an academic, isn't going to do practice-based work. Of course I do practice-based work. That's why I do public health work. And we should never think that a person who is doing practice-based work is never going to do research. They're going to do research. They're going to have to at least read research articles. So I think we're challenged to make sure that the programs don't become so dichotomized that there's got to be this, there's got to be like a blending of all of those things in both the PhD and the DRPH. And that's why I ask my students all the time, I say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm still trying to figure that out, by the way. Do you want to be like working in a university doing research, or do you be run a department of health? And then at that point, you can begin to decide what degree is appropriate for you.
So coming to Ministry of Health, right? For my years of experience with them, I think they're confused. So public health fits in ministries of health in different ways, and depending on which department or division you belong to, there is a role for PhD and there's a role for DRPH. Coming to what kind of program you would be interested in, what Perry said was very relevant, but in addition to that, I would like for you to think about what kind of research you would like to do. Because doctoral programs are all about experiential learning. You learn nevertheless during your duration of doctoral studies. But if you look at the culmination of your doctoral program, which is the research, would you like to carry out some applied research, some applied translational research, or more fundamental research? So I think having that in mind and keeping the ends where you would like to be helps you to decide where you want to go. Don't get so influenced by the person above you, especially in ministries, because they change. And you change within the ministries also. So like in Malaysia, we have places in the ministries which need PhDs, but then at the same time we have parts of the ministries which need DRPH.
I guess it's also important to look at the context of where you're working, because different systems have different requirements. So it really depends on like in Malaysia, you have a different context. In our case, our ministry doesn't know what it wishes to have. There are no requirements for doctorate programs. So it depends on where you're working, and of course also depends on your own aspirations, right? So I guess the programs that are more flexible are much better, because you say you can't have this very clear separation. The experienced public health is about applying some of these scientific methods into practice. So that's why in our PhD programs we do have coursework for the students to make sure that they understand the context in which they're working, and they go through all the 7 different disciplines.
We encounter some microphone problems.
Thank you all of you to present your experience. I think a different country have different background, different requirements. For example, the doctor degree in Taiwan, because of the Ministry of Education, actually we just have PhD, we don't have DRPH program. But you're lucky in the United States, in Hong Kong, and Malaysia, you have the flexible degree for doctorate. But all of us faculty here, we don't have DRPH program. However, the doctoral student, I think less than 20% of them are full-time students. 80% of them are on-time job students. So actually, the issue is supposed to be DRPH instead of PhD. Actually, when they graduate from PhD degree, less than 15% of students go to academic job. So actually, the demand and supply side sort of conflicts. Because of the job market already saturated here in Taiwan, there are so many programs, have so many faculty already. So once you graduate from here, it's very difficult for you to get a career job. And the two trend is one trend is most of the MS degree students, when they graduate, actually they do something like professional job. They go to healthcare organization. However, they are trained in Master of Science. So the training and application actually to some extent is inconsistent. So professor cannot train them many of the kind of the practitioner or practice-based experience. However, when they go to the job, they ask for them for practice-based. So this is kind of the conflict and inconsistent situation. Another trend is here in Taiwan. Most of the schools, they open the more executive program, like EMHA program, like EMBA program. They reduce the number of master degree programs. So NTU is only master degree has more than students than 20 student master degree students. Most of the schools, they have less than 10 master of science degree students. All of them, they expand to the executive program. So I'm not sure US, Malaysia, or Hong Kong, what kind of the demand and supply. If students are saturated here in Taiwan, they have a chance to go to Hong Kong, Malaysia, or the US. When they graduate from here, because it's oversupply here, how about the job market opportunity if they want to study abroad? What kind of the job market there? Can you share with us?
I mean, if I could add to that from the standpoint of the United States, it's exactly the same. We do not have a number every year of entry-level academic jobs that's equivalent to the number of PhDs that we produce. So, period. So, and they all get employed. They all get employed. And some of them do wind up in companies, you know, where they're heading research groups and doing work that's very much like what you might do in a university. Many of them are managing other things. And you know, we do try to teach them management skills, but I think they need that anyway, because how can you run a big research project without having any management skills anyway? So there are a lot of those skills you need to have, whether you're doing research or you're working in government or whatever you're doing. You need to know how to, you know, manage and do a budget and work with people and all that, right?
Jobs. I think it's the PhD students have obviously not, they can't all be absorbed into academia because our academic institutions are quite small. So there are a few research opportunities, so people then have to look in terms of other options. We have quite a few PhD students from the mainland, so they go back to the mainland, and others would just look for other job opportunities. But we do encourage people who wish to do PhD to come to our institutions, and they obviously they're very good and they contribute to our research, etc.
So coming to jobs again, right? So at the doctoral level, if you look at our candidates, we have about 70%, 70% BRPH, 30% PhD. Now those who take PhD, ultimately when they go out, they join healthcare organizations. Very few go back to Ministry of Health, but the vast majority will either join academia, or they join healthcare organizations, or pharma. Because those students have appropriate research skill sets, which are still in demand in Malaysia. Whereas our DRPH candidates, they typically go back to either Ministry of Health, and some of them have joined NGOs. But Ministry of Health is a major stakeholder for our DRPH program.
I would just say this. I would say this to anyone who's thinking about a doctoral degree, that I say to my own students who are studying with me, which is there are a lot of really amazing students out there who do really well and do wonderful dissertations and have great CVs. What differentiates you from the rest? And I think that's what you have to think about. And I think, you know, thinking about how you work with the community and how you speak to the lay audiences and how you do good scholarship and being much more well-rounded ultimately in this particular era is going to make you much more competitive for those academic jobs, which are, as has been said, very few. There's not a lot of them, right? And it's because people are living longer and like staying in their jobs for a long time, right? Like the Queen of England, she's like 1,000 years old. Charles is never going to be the king, right? Because of that. So try to think about like being a really, really strong scholar, but also like do good practice work, do community engaged research, right? Write some policy papers, think about those things, and that separates you from others, I think. That's what I tell my students.
Thank you for your speech. And I'm a PhD student in studying epidemiology, and I'm amazed and feel a little bit curious about there are many PhD programs which show that you can finish within 3 or 4 years. But I think in Taiwan, we usually take at least 4 years and maybe usually 6 or 7 years to finish the PhD program, because in the first or second year we need to take courses and prepare for the qualified exam, and then in the next we can review for our research topic and apply for a database and recruit participants to our cohort or case control or something, and then data analysis, and then output, and then journal writing or something. And maybe this is one part of our research, but I think if we want to complete our thesis, maybe 3 parts of this topic Yeah, so I'm wondering what is the requirement for those PhD program that can be finished within 3 and 4 years?
Yes, our programs are 3 years if you've got a research master's background, and 4 years if you don't. And as you say, quite right, our students have to do the coursework in the first year as well, so it's quite demanding. But usually when we get the students in, we'll be looking in terms of which areas you want to work on, and then we'll match them with the supervisors. And then because some of our work, we already have some projects going. So they don't then have, because if you have to apply for research, then as you say, it's going to take some time, because first you need to figure out in terms of which areas you want to work on, and then having to write up the research grant and getting someone to help you do that. It's going to take some time, then you have to take time to actually organize and actually do the research and get the results. So it becomes quite difficult to do it within 3 years. So unless you really have something that you are really interested in, so we usually try to match the students' interests with some of the work we're already doing, the areas of work. And even if it's a new project, it's related to something that we're doing, then it's easier to get a research grant. So that's what we're trying to do.
So my slide, when I put 3 years, that's the minimum duration of study. Right? So with regards to total duration, I think the average is closer to 5 years for PhD. There is a normal distribution around at 5, and there's some who graduate after 3. That's also because the PhD program that we have is slightly different from the BRPH program that we have. The BRPH program that we have is much more structured, and because of the structuring, you can keep to a timeline between 3 to 4 years. But PhD on the average takes about 5 years, 4 to 5.
Yeah, I think 3 is really quick, right? I think that, so we've designed our program so that there's only at Rutgers to only be 2 years of coursework. Because for me, the doctoral program should really be about the mentor-apprentice relationship, the person you're working with, like, being in the laboratory, writing papers together. That's really what it should be about. The coursework, yeah, whatever the coursework. But 3 years to do your coursework and do a proposal and to do a dissertation seems like it's a little too rushed. And I think, like, for me, the number I like is 5. I think 5 is good. I think 6 is bad. Right. But 5 is like, at that point, you should have had the experience. And it's also, it's like, that first year, it doesn't matter how well you know your mentor. Figuring out that dynamic and working together takes time. And because you're dealing with 2 human beings. So, yeah.
Okay, if there's no more question from Ali, okay.
Thank you for your experiences. And my question is that I'm from National Young University, and I'm very happy to hear the experience from other countries. And I think we are here actually to try to solve the big issues like global climate change and immigration, health. So there are so many novel issues that we are preparing ourselves to solve the problems. So speaking of job markets, I'm not sure in your countries, did you create or did you prepare your students to create the new jobs that to tackle the new issues, novel issues in the globe? And maybe that would be a very good direction for us to know what the future will be, what the future job market will be.
I think the concentrations we've developed in the last few years are responsive to where we're going. So like the environmental justice degree that's being formed, like thinks about how polyester clothing lives in landfills forever, right? And how you actually become an activist around environmental issues, right? So the beautiful thing about the new criteria from CUHK is that it allows us this freedom to develop these more relevant things. So Yeah, I think, we're trying to be as responsive as possible. I actually see my colleague there from Columbia who wants to say something.
No, I think we have to do it both at the master's and the doctoral.
At the doctoral level,
yeah. So we did start a doctoral program in climate and health at Columbia to that end. And I think we need to be doing more of that because I agree that I agree that the interdisciplinary nature that's required to address these problems at a doctoral level requires collaboration among and between the departments that we all have at our schools. So having siloed PhD programs don't help us prepare scientists who are prepared to address very complex issues like climate and health, and we have to do that. And so we're starting to do that, but I think we need to do more of that, and certainly collaborating globally where we might have cross or complementary areas of expertise at a doctoral level would be great.
Just one point to add. If you're thinking about the upcoming workforce, right, the workforce of the future, that means if you're actually training the workforce for 2030 and 2040s, it's very difficult to concentrate on the hard skills. The hard skills will change.
Yeah.
I think focusing on the soft skills is of paramount importance and stressing it throughout the program. How programs teach students soft skills is very, very important.
Okay, thank you all for joining this very insightful and very inspiring discussion. And we have another 20 minutes of the break. We have only 10 minutes of the break till the next session starts.
Thank you. That was so much fun. Where are we? In this room. At what time? Yeah, so are we free Thursday? Yeah, we'll come. Wednesday?
Due to the delay, so next session will start at 20 past 3. Thank you very much.
All right.
You're in the wrong profession. The marvelous Mrs. Mason. Bad too.
Is that yours?
I'm 67. Oh, you're right.
Okay, welcome to this session on big data. My name is Yu-Kang Tu. I'm the coordinator of this session. I'm also director and professor of the Institute of Epidemiology and Preventive Medicine at NTU. And this session we have 3 distinguished speakers, and we are going to give 10 minutes presentation each. So the first speaker will be Professor Ayman El-Mohandes from City University of New York. Professor El-Mohandes is the Dean of the Graduate School of Public Health and Health Policy. And our second speaker is Dr. Wongsa Laohasiriwong. She's the Dean of the Concurrent University Faculty of Public Health from Thailand. And our third speaker is Dr. Yusuf Ibrahim. Professor Ibrahim is the head of the Department of Community and Family Medicine, University of Malaysia, Sabah Faculty of Medicine and Health Science from Malaysia. And so I will first invite our speaker to give the presentation, and at the end of the presentation, then we'll have a panel discussion. So first, I'll ask Professor El-Mohandes to start his presentation. Thank you very
much. So I'm getting help here with some basic technological. Yes, and how would you like me to proceed? Yes, I'm just going to check and make sure. There you are. So welcome to this session, and I hope that we will have an interesting discussion at the end of this session. But I'll tell you, when I was a student in epidemiology and biostatistics, my faculty warned me against much of what we practice today in big data research. And they used to, in principle, say, never go fishing, meaning that when you swim into the pool of data, you should know your destination. Otherwise, it will be considered heresy. It will be considered below good epidemiological methodology. And some faculty actually continue to teach that. And I don't blame them for teaching that. The other thing was that epidemiological and biostatistical sciences were considered a domain that concerned epidemiologically trained and biostatistically trained professionals. Today, when we talk about big data, we see that it is a revolution. My very dear friend, Dean Michael Liu, asked me, from Berkeley University, asked me, I didn't think you were a big data person. And it could be because I'm not very tall, or potentially because I'm not very fat. But in essence, there is no one of us today that should consider themselves outside of the margin of big data knowledge or big data engagement, because in fact, big data is an approach that will modify the way science and knowledge is practiced and understood. But actually, the definition does not refer to the amount of data, but to the fact that when it started, it was data that could not be stored and processed using traditional database software. Such data like Google search indices and Facebook user profiles are in their enormity beyond the capacity of these traditional technologies. And big data started flooding business once data collection became part of business and marketing. And on a daily basis, a lot of information was being gathered about people buying Nike sneakers, or buying a certain type of liquor, or buying tickets to go to a certain kind of show. And businesses decided that this was lost information unless they could use it in a constructive way, mainly to target their marketing and mainly to reach interested clientele that they could define through the data that was being gathered. And these were considered strategic business decisions based on the data that they had not really planned to gather, but that they had found made available to themselves. The thing about big data is that it comes from a variety of sources. And good data science, good big data science, is not linear in its approach, but is integrated in its approach, and therefore uses a lot of hodgepodge, which is the other thing that my epidemiological professors would cringe at, that we in fact embrace what is called dirty data. You know, we jump into these pools of murky, muddy waters, hoping to be able to fish a pearl. That is truly not good epidemiological technique, and very frequently epidemiologists are questioning whether dirty data should at all be approached or used only to be carried by a handkerchief at arm's length and discarded into the trash bin. But big data, on the other hand, like a frivolous dog or a hungry pig, will throw themselves into that mud and swirl around, trying to extract wisdom out of it. Truly not good methodology from the traditional perspective of big data, of epidemiological analysis. But big data in of itself can be used in a variety of ways. You can plunge yourself into this murky water and find information that can be useful to glean predictive trends in the future, which has been used mainly by businesses. It can be used to explore connections which are unforeseen or suggestive of complex risk associations that were hitherto unknown or unanticipated. It was interesting that the Wall Street Journal published an article giving initial prediction that big data research would be the demise of traditional statistical research. And that, in fact, has not panned true. And very great biostatisticians living in pristine statistical space continue to be a very important resource to science, and especially biostatisticians to health science. So the fact that we have this new generation of big data scientists that go into Google indices and try to find the association of the utilization of the N-word, racism, and other health outcomes within communities or cities in the United States does not replace the importance and the specificity of sophisticated statistical method that is used, for example, in clinical trials today. So let us just consider these to be different chapters in our professional work. The initial characterization of big data was the 3 V's: the volume of the data, the variety of the data, and the velocity of the data. And when we mean the velocity of the data, it is really the speed with which there may be changes in trends of data from one day to the other. All of us in America follow, I don't want to get political, but I can't help it. We follow the popularity of President Trump from day to day based on what he had tweeted that morning. So in fact, big data gathered, yes, exactly, at 2 a.m. actually, when he wakes up for his, whatever. So the velocity of the data is the speed with which the data may change. And gathering data that's a week old in certain instances may be not fresh data and not to be consumed. So the original 3 V's, new 3 V's have been added to them. IBM added the topic of veracity, veracity meaning the degree of accuracy. As I said, very frequently big data scientists understand, respect, invite, embrace, and perhaps almost encourage the fact that the data may not be entirely accurate. But if the data is incorrect, then there has to be some measure in which you can test the veracity. The other V that has been added by SAS was the variability and complexity of data, because not all big data is of the same degree of complexity, and that must be taken into consideration in issues of analysis. And then finally, Oracle added the sixth V, which is value. Is this data even worth looking at, or is it of no value in the analysis that you are trying to conduct? Big data is complex in the processing and recording, but also in the extraction and cleaning, and then in the integration and aggregation. And that, from a technological point of view, perhaps is the most complex level. 2 minutes left. Yes, indeed. Following the integration and aggregation is obviously the modeling and analysis, which is extremely important. Some of you may have heard my comment earlier when we were talking about schools of public health, and I said that we have such a large database in the Association of Schools of Public Health, and it is incumbent upon us to use this data to do some predictive modeling. One of the participants then responded by saying, but we need to respect variation between school and school, and I would insist that systems modeling does not in fact sequester us to one model, but good systems modeling allows us to view the world in its complexity and predict through that modeling different outcomes. And then finally, the interpretation. So the challenges in big data is obviously linkage of disparate data sets, which is associated with new, complex, technical, and ethical challenges. Part of the challenge is loss of representativeness, when you're looking at enormous data representing populations that with a profile that's hard to pin down. Lack of common identifiers when you're trying to aggregate data in order to glean some depth of understanding. And then issues related to respondent consent, because Michael and I, when we bought our little sports socks, had no idea that Nike was going to use that data against us to stuff us with another middle-aged, aging man product that we would probably need to heighten our self-confidence. New matching technologies are emerging to help increase the likelihood of correct linkaging of data, and methods, 0 time, I will rush through the slide, methods that balance the cost of false positives and false negatives. And why is big data research applicable to public health? There is no question that as we understand public health, it is a complex in its risk expression and complex in its outcome expression, and therefore using big data allows us a deeper understanding of public health issues, and using systems application relying on big data helps save time, discovering unintended consequences, which is so important about big data, which is, yes, indeed, you can go fishing. And that is something that can produce an understanding of risk outcome associations that were unforeseen, and avoids a linear interpretation of one risk, one characteristic, and one outcome. I think we're almost there. No, I'm not there. I just wanted to say very quickly that biological scientists are ahead of behavioral scientists in the area of big data. The Human Genome Project, for example, was a very good training process for biological scientists and big data scientists to work together towards common outcomes. Unfortunately, behavioral scientists have not had the 30 years of work that the biological scientists have had collaborating with big data scientists. And that is something that we need to be mindful of and begin to think about. And then finally, are we training our beautiful young minds around us to approach big data in more sophisticated ways? Or are we, because we, faculty, are so in the past, unable to transform these new skills and competencies to our students so that they can really deal with these challenges that are emerging with this new form of science. Thank you so much for allowing me to rush through my last 2 slides. And I'm sure we're going to have much more discussion about that at the end of the talk. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Laohasiriwong. Please.
Good afternoon, our audience. So today I would like to share with you about the application of the big data to the population health in Thailand. This is our direct experiences. So what we talk is about what we develop and use it, both in Thailand and in Laos PDR, our neighboring country. So my name is Wongsa. I'm the new dean of the faculties. And then I come here today on behalf of these autonomous bodies under our faculties. We call Dhamasa, which is good deed. So this is the data management and chemical analysis center, because we long time ago in like early 2000, we faced a problem that the best we can do in research is cross-sectional study, case control, or RCT, but in terms of causal model, cohort study is better. So we try to do something that we could like conduct a very good research. And this is half of our staff in this one. Most of them are programmers, so we have about 30 programmers in this organization. Yes, we enrolled them to our master and doctoral, otherwise we could not pay them. It's too expensive to pay them. So the best is being our students. You know that, right? So the mandate of the MSPH is to design and develop the software for data management and the data quality assurance for health researchers. It could really provide the real-time reporting. This is we do it all the times. And so we have a varieties of tools, and this one also we use to train. So our data set is being used by doctoral master student to be the doctoral thesis, and also artist organization. So this is a development. Even the unit is established in 2012, but we start before that. We have the Emirates online medical research tool. So this is for the data entry of we use scanner first at the beginnings, and then in 2011 we have Thai clinical trial registry. So this one is endorsed by the WHO for the primary registration site, and then we have DAMUS, and then CASCAP, ISAN cohort, and Thai CARE-CRAFT. So this one, so I will show one by one. So we just go quickly, and then like 2016 to present, we have the Thai hospital information system, which is used all over the country, and we have NC, the National Clinical Research, and the CKD, the Chronic Kidney Disease Registry, and with this one, the last one is we extended to Laos PDR to combat cholangiocarcinomas. So this is the latest one. So go one by one. The Emirates is the online medical research tool that is kind of like the innovation on data entry scanner. So if you get into this size, so you could really see this is the platform, how it looks like. And then this, the second one is more rather really comprehensive. Is we call Thai Clinical Trial Research Database. So this one is operated by the Clinical Research Collaboration Network. This organization is under the Medical Research Foundation, so most of them are doctors in all disciplines. So they try to combat NCDs and many other diseases. So this is the big data set and still use it for this one. And so this is the platform of the Thai Clinical Trial Registry. So you could really get the data set from them. And this one is commonly used worldwide, not only in our country. So you could register, and the data archival for maximum utilization system we call DAMUS. So this one is kind of this have research, data from research of all area that's encouraged to share. So this one, there are a lot of data concerning NCDs, like diabetes, hypertension, and many others. So this is the main data source for our doctoral students. This is the, if you log into the website, so you could see this one, and you could really being members and retrieve the data. And this one we call Isan cohort. Isan is the dialects of our country, so it means northeastern, because we come from the northeastern region of Thailand, which is the biggest in terms of land area and population. So this is a cohort. Why we do it? Because we have the highest prevalence in the world for cholangiocarcinoma. It's the native, like the people that love eating raw fish, the freshwater fish, so they get liver fluke, OV infection. So we try to convince, and the biggest program that under the Isan cohort is cholangiocarcinoma screening and care program, the CUHK, which is like, this project is mean the people will be registered and also take the, like for the to exam, or they might use antibodies one, and also they have CT scan to really kind of detect of OV and also the cholangiocarcinoma for early detection and prompt treatment. So they have more than 22 million people enrolled, and really check if you use the antibody from urine, is the positive rate is about 36%. But if you use like the traditional gold standard, it's about 6-point-something%, which is kind of really still the problem in Thailand. So this is the platform you could see of this cohort. That's the Thai version is like the numbers of like hospital, all sorts of, and it's very good that it's go down to the primary levels, not only the tertiary levels. So a lot of people. And this one that we really extended to Lao PDR, we call combating cholangiocarcinoma in Lao PDR. So because we share common cultures, so the Laotian also eating raw fish. And then also, so we launched the project, we get about 50 million Thai baht. So it's more than $1 million to extend our project to Lao PDR. So everything is like trained, and the platform is more or less the same as our country. So it's run by our unit. And this is this one, what we have done in Lao PDR. So this is our, the administrators go to health, so they use a lot of this one. And right now we are in the Thai care crowd. This is very big one. So it's a tool for epidemiological surveillance. So our data is go to the crowd. So this one is the health database and electronic media service. So this is the system that we use. So the most really significant one. So the cholangiocarcinoma also in this one on the left hand side. Also that's the orange one is CKD. For CKD we have more than 10 million people registered, and they're also being checked. So the CKD prevalence is 6.65%, which is really important, and we also use it to manage, because some of them get peritoneal dialysis, and the government just send the truckload of the fluid to their home without knowing that they get it or not. So right now we could really kind of surveillance where they are and whether they get it or not. This is something that we do. And so, and then the CKD, this one is the QR code that they could really kind of set, like upload the Android application. And also the green one is for the collecting of care of CKDs. So this is the Thai, and the other one is the Thai Hospital Information System. So this one we signed a contract with the Ministry of Public Health. So the project get about, I think, 80 million Thai baht support for to set this one, and we get most of the hospital in Thailand to join, and the data is in our cloud. So anyone, you could retrieve it if you get it. The problem is, if you would like to do research, you have to get the approval. Like this is something that is hard to get, but some of our students get it. So this thing, if you do it properly, you could get it. So this is the platform for the Thai Hospital Information System. So the data transferred by the Thai Care Cloud is two-way communication. So it's automatic data transfer and real-time manner, so you could get the data right away in numbers. Right? So it's just two-way communication from users and also those who really manage this one. So that's the NCRC, National Clinical Research Center. This is the system that we use to not only to manage the clinical trial management, but it's the one that we encourage the management or share of the different type of research data to use this one. So this is so this one, right now we make use of this one to apply it to be, how you call the office program. So we will train our faculties within one semester. This is my mandate that I promised to the president that we're going to be digital faculty. So our data going to be in the division cloud, faculty cloud, and we try to match and make the whole university using this cloud. So this is, we will train the staff to make we call it easy form. With this very simple thing that you do, and you're going to be in the form, and you could really kind of process, input the data, and also analyze, and you could train the program to make it all report. So you need to do the report after we really set it. So this one, and this is the hospital that really kind of joined this one. So we, last year, we have more than half of them really join us already. So this is how we do with the CKD. So how this is look like consort diagram, but anyhow, this is how we train it. So this is how we locate them, and then this is how we make use of it. So I think NTU used a lot. This is the survival curve. So Kaplan-Meier. So this is how we make use of the, like after the first diagnosis of diabetes and hypertension, the survivals of the CKD. So stage 3, this one, and when we classify as male and female. So and then this is just treatment naive population that we compare the price of selected country for this one. So this is what we do. Just kind of really, we are kind of university outside Bangkok, but we just really keen to this one to try to develop, and we do further because right now the director is in the hospital doing like he got this herniation just took operation a few days ago, and then right now the faculties will take control all over administration of this one with the fully support, and we hope that in the future we have more to share with you. Thank you very much.
Now I would like to invite our third speaker, Dr. Yusuf Ibrahim, to give his presentation.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's good to be the last presenter. Maybe good or not? Not good. Both ways. In fact, I was planning to start this presentation by traditional way of introducing, and later on try to bring all of us examples of how big data is going to be used. But being a last speaker, everything is been covered by Prof. Ayman, the introduction part of it. So what I will do, put the title that explained by Prof. Ayman just now, that was the introduction of big data. So it makes my life easier, Prof. And the usage is already mentioned by our second speaker. So the third speaker, I have nothing to say. So maybe that's the last one. Thank you. All right. I just want to show our university, a very new university. We are 25 years old. our faculty of medicine is very young, 12 years old. So but we have a very nice university, in fact, one of the nicest university in Malaysia probably, yeah? The most beautiful university in Malaysia. So please visit us. Alright, as I said, I wanted to start like this. So introduction, application, blah, 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 blah. But then Prof. Ayman has taken my part, so I will not elaborate that. He speak a little bit. So I'm not going to do that. Just want to show.
I would say repetition is very useful.
Okay, just want to flashback now about big data. Previously, we used to see those. This one, you know, it used to be. Remember these floppy disks? Then you used to see this part, but now you don't see anything else. You know, you see just the cloud. You say cloud, you don't see. Yeah? So that's what's happening to us. Big data is taking our life. So a lot of terminology is being used for big data. Some people use eHealth, mHealth, you know, just now also hospital-based. Yeah? So some of us use telehealth, telemedicine. Yeah? So these are various terms which are being used to signify the usage of big data. So the definition of big data, I don't want to define again. I think Prof. Ayman has defined it very nicely with jokes in between, like that. Of the description of big data, I think also the 5 parts of big data, I think Prof. Ayman has mentioned that. It's normally if you talk about big data in health, normally we discuss about the measurement of patient's biology, the participant contacts. It should be related to medical and health record data, and it's taken in compound. Yeah, so that's what we mean about we talk about big data in public health. Yeah, so I think Prof. Ayman had mentioned this velocity, volumetricity, veracity, and also plus another new definition. So I'm not going to do that. So although we talk about big data, but big data will not have any value if we don't put any analysis to that. So the big challenge will be analyzing the data, then they have the value to that data, right? Sources of big data, I think our second speaker had talked a lot about that, and Prof. Ayman talked about it, so I'm not going to repeat that again, although repetition is good, but I think, the why do we use health data? Because it's more faster, yeah. I think effective. We can make good decisions. We can monitor closely and correlate with prior knowledge. Yeah. How is it stored? I think we saw that just now in cloud. The second speaker mentioned about that very well. So I'm not going to discuss about that. The benefit also, I'm not going to elaborate further. I think the 2 speakers have done that nicely. Yeah, just to
very good slide. Let's go
So the benefit, of course, right living. Yeah, we provide right provider, all the right care, right value, and right utilization. Yeah, that's the benefit. Of course, the benefit can also be in economic terms. Yeah. So if you innovate, it costs the value of it. Yeah, you see it's increasing when you put it into innovation part. Yeah, that's the economic value. I just want to talk a little bit about application in public health. I think Prof. Ayman had mentioned this, some of that, effectiveness in treatment, prevention of diseases, prediction of outcome, knowledge dissemination, reduction in efficiency and waste, and improvement in cost containment. These are some of other uses: outbreak detection, yeah, environmental monitoring, early warning system. I think just now second speaker mentioned about this very nicely with example what they did in Thailand. Just want to show, share with you the application of big data in public health. Case number 1, advanced tele-assistant system. This is one of the good systems which was designed to take care of elderly. I think why is it important? I think as our population are getting older, so I think this is one of the good systems which they can monitor the movement of elderly and prevent them from getting injury. Yeah. Although this system It's very simple and it works beautifully, but if you see it's a really a complicated system. Yeah, or it's very complicated, but the usage is wonderful. So another another application is in community diagnosing in diabetic retinopathy. This is used in India, where you see community workers use it to diagnose retinopathy. Yeah. And the prediction of this is very accurate, yeah, about 99% correct. Not only retinopathy can be detected by the common people, by the community, also the biological sex, the BMI, systolic blood pressures. Yeah, I think this is one of the wonderful usage of big data in the community. Again, in the I think also in the hospital, but also in small clinics, we can also monitor the prediction of medical events. Yeah, from the source we can from this data, analyze this all data, we can predict that 76% of chances of readmission. So we can use this for our monitoring. For example, in our country, TB is very predominant, so we can use this to predict the success story of the success of TB treatment. So this is what happening in Malaysia. We have our DG, Director General of Ministry of Health, recently launched this AI stethoscope. This stethoscope can be used by anybody. You just put on the chest and you diagnose what happened to the person. Yeah. The second one will be The second one is very interesting. Predicting of dengue fever. This is to initiate those MPH holders. This is designed by MPH students. Yeah, he won an award at international level. Yeah, from Sabah. So this system was used in Brazil recently. Yeah, predicting the dengue outbreak. In local context, we are also developing or using big data to predict malaria outbreak, which is very common in our place. Predicting success TB treatment and many other issues. So the challenges, I think I think Prof. Ayman mentioned that the last two slides: storage, searching, sharing, transfer, or analysis. The security and privacy of that we have to take care. Data analysis is a challenge. The cost is very expensive. Recent technology is the technology is developed very fast, so the tool is very expensive and change very quickly. Yeah. So recommendation, what do we need our future leaders like MPH students need to do? We need to create awareness, education and training. Is it enough for MPH education now? The answer, I don't think so, because we just discussed at the other session that in MPH we talk about the 5 core. I don't think 5 core is enough for the future MPH holder. We need to think our future is to think like a computer, whether we can do it or not. Yeah, we need other people to help us. Collaborations, yeah, interdisciplinary is the answer. I think what Thailand have shown just now, a lot of people working together to produce a good outcome. So this will be expected for the future direction of our MPH or DRPH leaderships. Yeah. In conclusion, big data provide infrastructure and analysis for massive data. Big data can improve healthcare, improve research, and it also raises a security part of it. Sometimes security can be abused. It requires right policy. I think we need to develop this policy now. To conclude, any business that doesn't seriously consider application of big data runs the risk of left behind. I think that is our role to be aware the usage of big data and to learn and try to pick up or understand the application of big data. Yeah, I just want to show you the last slides, which remember this one. I think some of us have not seen this. The younger generation have not seen this. This is floppy disk. Yeah, I think Prof. Ayman and myself have seen this. We used to store this. No, we can't. You can only store a few photographs. Then we use diskette. Yeah, which is not bad. Then we use this thing. this one happen in your handphone, yeah, but it's getting smaller and smaller. Later on, you don't see anything. It's all in the cloud. Yeah, our computer used to be this big, and hospital now have robots. But you see this recently. The name is Sophia. I think this is going to we need to have this everywhere. This is our chief minister talking to Sophia. So later on we can talk to her and she give you diagnosis. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for our three resident speakers. So now we have time for another discussion. To make a start, I would like to ask our speaker some very basic question about big data. Something bothered me actually for a long time since the term of big data came out. The first is how big is big? So because maybe before the emergence of computers, then maybe all the data we now collect is big data. But now due to the technology advance, now we can talk about some really big data. So what is the difference between the analysis of so-called small data and the big data? It's about how we process the data, how we store the data, or it's about how we think about data. For example, we teach our students statistics because statistics is a very useful tool. We don't need to actually measure each person in the population. We only need to take a sample from the population, and then we analyze the sample, and then we can make statistical inference to the parameter in the population. But now we are talking about, we are going to go out and measure everybody in the population. And then if that's the case, I don't know when that's the case, then we don't need statistics because you are going to actually measure population, not a sample. You're not going to take a sample from the population. So that's something really, made me start thinking, what's the real difference between the analysis of small data and the big data? So maybe start from,
allow me to volunteer, but as our dear President Trump says, it's huge. But in all reality, I think the important answer to your question is that we presume that our original approach towards population sampling is a better approach. Sometimes there is that underlying inference, or we seem to be suggesting that. The big data application, especially in behavioral research, is actually a very timely intervention. I don't know what it's like in Taiwan or what it's like in Malaysia or what it's like in Thailand, but we are suffering from very poor responses to large-scale sampling. People don't respond to questionnaires when they're being sampled very frequently. It's very expensive to actually administer these questionnaires. So the sampling itself has become an issue and is really a technology that is proving itself to be defective in really answering good questions. And imputational approaches and so on try to cover for the deficiencies of that research approach. So the availability of big data can actually be an answer, not a challenge to other approaches in research. The question about big data is not exactly how it's replacing sampling. It's really a different way of looking at things. So, for example, let me come up with a total crazy scientific scheme. Let me assume that in certain states of the United States, people in social media are using derogatory language about blacks. They're using bad words that are only used by people that don't think highly of people of a certain racial affiliation. So you can collect that data on social media. Then, through media of people that are utilizing TV programs, you can find out about people that are staying up very late at night. and trying to map people that are not sleeping to neighborhoods where black people live. Okay? These are totally disparate pieces of information. And then overlaying that with information of a medical record nature about the prevalence of diabetes amongst the population of African Americans. Okay? There is no sampling technique that can give you an information that links racism to lack of sleep to diabetes. So what big data research brings is necessarily a depth of approach and of thinking that sampling cannot help you with. So it's not about so many people and so few, why do we need? There are different approaches to research that will survive side by side to answer questions in different ways. And if we think of data as a big animal swallowing little data, like a big wolf swallowing the little rabbit, then that's not actually very conducive. This is just a different approach where you use the availability of data that's collected haphazardly, perhaps in a very different way, to answer questions that are not answerable by the little rabbit. Is that fair? Thank you.
I think I would like to add, I think when we collect data, we think about the hypothesis. You know? That's a different, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a different, the student must think. Don't think that, oh, I don't have to do this research, it's available. No, it's not like that. The flow of doing that is important.
Okay, I think what you teach, or we have teach students do, correct, right? Because like this is the, but what we have done with the big data is we try to set the system that's fairly for us to be able to follow them across the town, right? To see what happened. Because whatever we know in Birmingham or many others, the context is different. So this with different contexts across the year, when we compete with person times and blah, 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 so we could see a lot. And we could really how you convert them up to raise awareness of them, to concern, and really set the very appropriate policy, right, and to really manage or prevent the problem. So this is very important, and you could see that with the statistic, embryology, research methodology we have. We come up with many inclusion and exclusion criteria to be able to use the data in the big data anyway, right? And you could set plenty of research questions on like DM, hypertension, stroke, and many other things, even growth. So right now I see like one papers from Scandinavia that they follow the people across the time. So they have 3 cohorts. One cohort of the patient, one cohort is the sibling, and the other cohort of the normal people. This and they match some kind of like age and sex. So this one they could follow and come up with very good results. This is from the registration that they have. So this is very good really data that they get from hospital base, they get from the I don't know, welfare, registration, blah, blah. So there's sorts of things, but it depends on what's your research question and the hypothesis, right? And the data is there, right? The data is there because you already really design very good prospective cohort, and then the data, and you set very good question and set the inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, and you have done the perfect job. I think it's very good. It is BMJ and it's very good one.
I think the 3 of us agree that big data research is not competing with sampled data.
Thank you very much. I believe our audience might get a lot of questions to ask our speaker. Who wants to be the first?
Dear Malabika's in the back, she has her hand up.
I think my voice is good. I have a loud voice. Thank you very much, because I think it is very timely. But as all of you are like kind of in Dean of School of Public Health, and you're talking about the big data, one of the ways to analyze big data is the machine learning. So, but still now, if we look at our epidemiology or biostatistics curriculum, we are talking of the big data the researchers are doing. Even we are asking our mid-level to do some kind of machine learning, but we have not yet integrated this discussion into the curriculum. So I would like to request you to kind of shed light on that, because I think most of you are at mid-level or junior researcher. It's very important that what is the, how are we going to do that? Thank you.
I think I mentioned that just now, that the traditional way of teaching MPH now, I think is not adequate. Yeah? We focus on the 5 core. Yeah? We need to add this, what you say is correct. We need to add this additional knowledge to the new generations. Yeah? Probably what we need is, I think that the previous, the previous session just now mentioned about the interdisciplinary, yeah? Invite people, invite professionals from other fields, for example, engineering, yeah. So probably that should be the best. We should, I agree with you, we should review the curriculum teaching of education.
I agree that there are basic elements, and I think we've kind of reviewed them here, where big data would fit into an MPH practice element. First, some of our MPH students may be involved in big data research, but most of our public health students need to have a critical eye when they read information that is gleaned from big data research. Just like they are supposed to evaluate a scientific paper to know whether it's a bunch of rubbish or whether it's something they can learn something out of. So I think the understanding of the mechanism of it, the understanding of its value, and the understanding or the ability to look at it critically, be it of a behavioral or a biological nature, is the kind of thing that can be very useful to the next generation of students. So I agree with you, and the question is not just should we, but who is? Is it going to be incorporated in what they study in EPI, or is it going to be incorporated in what they study in behavioral and social sciences, or is it going to be incorporated into their research methodology training during the MPH? And that is something that we have not tackled adequately yet, but is worth considering, and I think, as you say, is timely.
So this is very good question. So in our faculty, so the student, the first thing we teach them about to search for evidence, and then after that they have to be able to manage the data set. Like for the qualifying exam, we give them more than 20,000 really kind of like patient record, and then they have to random select and analyze it and be able to interpret and come up with a mock abstract. So this sort of thing. So they're learning by doing this. One thing, the other thing is, right now we get them involved in the health informatics subject, try to get them. And then for the doctor, when we waiting for this discipline to develop, we also use the big data from satellite, right, nighttime light to represent the income of the people, and also industrial index and other things, and do spatial analysis. So you could put my name and spatial analysis, you could see some publication of that purposing. And then with the OV, we are now waiting for the publication. So that sort of thing. So we overlay the OV infection all over our regions, and also overlay with the areas, the rice paddy area, the water resources, and dog, cat, or something. This is the GIS, this size. So we could do and retrieve it. The Google, we have more than 25 satellites that we could retrieve and use it. And the student of master and doctor, they could practices is very easy if they could manage it. So the first thing we did at the first time is when we used the programmer to teach the normal doctoral student, and after that the doctoral student teach among themselves from senior to junior. So this one will be included, and we set the master and doctoral to study together if they are international students. So they learn it since the first semester. Our master is 1 year, actually, and like within 15 months, and then the doctoral is 3 years. And if you are a scholarship student, for sure they will not really stay longer. So 3 years they have to complete.
I think various students will learn about this at various levels of proficiency, depending on what their field is going to be, and whether it's at master's level or doctoral.
I have a follow-up question that's keeping me up awake at night, kind of worrying about this. It's conceivable that in the next 5 years or 10 years, and I know it's conceivable because I actually have faculty at Berkeley that's working on this right now, that machines can be trained to do statistical programming, study design, causal inference, predictive analytics faster, better, and cheaper than humans can. So when that happens, are the students that we're training today in epidemiology and biostatistics, are they going to be out of a job? I guess my question is, what is the future work of epidemiology and biostatistics in the era of AI, machine learning, and deep learning? And what should we be doing differently today with our students to make sure that we're preparing them for where epi and biostats are going to be tomorrow?
I usually the secret I keep to myself. Don't tell my students.
Well, first of all, not all of us are going to the moon. And I think the people that are engaged in astrophysics are convinced that all of us should be totally aware of its integral nature in our everyday life. But it's not the case. Whether in fact machines are going to overtake population research is questionable. I'm sure that your faculty will be very angry, but it has not been proven to be something that I intend to experience in my lifetime. I'm 67, so I'm protected that way. But I do believe that there will be a human element in hypothesis generation, because in big data research, you very frequently are encountering a hodgepodge of information. And unless either you are very sophisticated in approaching this with a predetermined hypothesis, like your phenomenal work in Thailand is doing, or glean a hypothesis from the big data, I think that the human element is very important. The human element in mathematical public health research is not simply to punch buttons on a computer.
Yeah, I think you should train them to be the managers. Because the manager is getting things done to the effort of others. So let them manage the AI. Right? Because the AI could not think by themselves. So they need the context, you need the contents, and your students have to be very creative to set up very good question and to develop it and that sort of thing. So this is what I discussed with the director of Thammasat, that we will be the one who manage it. So if you could manage them, it's okay. So right now, our doctoral thesis, after they get the answers, they have to develop like application, mobile application, or computer application to tackle it, and we have to, this one is our intelligence that we register. So this is something that we try to make, let's set some cultures of innovation, and then more things could be new thing and very important in the future. So this is what we plan to do in the future, because otherwise we will have problem. I never really kind of afraid of AI, because I think we will be able to manage it, because I'm the manager. Right? So actually I'm a manager, but I conduct a lot of research and then be able to tell them what to do. I train the programmer what to do, I train everything. So if I say to them, like if they talk to them, it take them days. But for me, within 10 minutes or 5 minutes, they understand it. Because I understand it. So you have to understand, right? And then know how it links. So this sort of thing is going to be, so you have to be very humanistic. And then you're going to be good manager, and you would like be able to manage it.
Okay, thank you very much, because we are running out of time. Should you join me to thank our three speakers? I think we can pick up with them later in this conference. So now we have 10 minutes break, and then please then go back to the room 101 for the closing session.
1包7个。